All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 9. That is right, week number 9 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and what we are going to do this week is we're going to do a quick state of the course update, and then after we do that state of the course update, I'm going to say a few words about copyright. This one might be about 30 minutes unsped, even though I'm going to try to make it shorter than that. But by all means, speed me up. And if you need to take a break, of course, take a break. But also know that all of these check-in videos are optional. I do wish that everybody watched them, but quite frankly, not everybody wants to, and that's fine. I want you all to enjoy the class more than anything else. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into that state of the course update, and then we'll talk a little bit about copyright. By the way, there is a copyright class that is offered by CISL. So I'm not going to talk a bunch about copyright. I'm going to talk a little bit. If copyright is something you're interested in pursuing as a full-length class subject, then by all means catch that class when it is next available. Okay. All right. So yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and make me small. I am recording this on October the 21st. So let's click out of some of these so that we can see what we've got going on this week. And I see the big one. This is the big one. This is the big one. Is that banned or challenged book report that is going to be due this coming Sunday, October the 26th at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Now, please know, again, I do not just wait around at midnight to count off for people who did not turn it in right at the time. There is a little bit of a grace period, but you know the deal, and you all have responded well to the deal thus far, so continue responding well to the deal. Continue just responding well to turning your things in Sunday night, and unless you need an extension, in which case contact me. All right, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the banned and challenged book reports. I know I said I had a sample, and then the sample is gone, and I can't access my 2020 classes again. So if I think you're going to do okay without a sample to go on, to be honest with you. But if you want a sample or a guideline, let me know, and I'll find one from previous class and just post it up. I'll post it up anonymously so I don't run into any FERPA issues, and then from there you'll have a sample. But I think you all are going to do fine. There is one submission there already that is just fine. So if you all match or exceed that effort of the one that one of your classmates has already turned in, you're going to be just fine as well, okay? But make sure, again, that you're paying attention to the little rubric that I have there. It's just a little rubric. In fact, we can go look at that. Yeah, okay. So yeah, getting our little, this is our little rubric right here. This is all. 8 points for giving thorough answers, 3 for spelling, grammar, overall English usage and cohesiveness, and then APA is another 3 points. So as you can see, one of your classmates has already turned his in here, and it was just fine. Don't worry about hanging indents when you're turning things in, and they're not in a paper form. They're more like a discussion board form. Don't worry about hanging indents in that case. I don't even know if that can be done, but if it is, I'm not interested in learning how to do it, so I'm not interested in teaching you all how to do it. Okay. All right. And from there, yeah, also know we'll have our library neutrality panel on November the 4th. So that is 2 weeks from today. So, and I need to reach out to those panelists too and get them prepared. So yeah, in 2 weeks from today, cause again, I'm recording this on October 21st, 2 weeks from today on November the 4th, we will have our next sync session, our second of our 3. And again, that'll be a library neutrality panel. And yeah, from there, mostly what you got to worry about are discussion board prompts, and we will have our debate in December. So things are moving right along. I'm satisfied with the work that you all have been doing in the class. There is nothing that I need to bring to the attention, the mass attention of the class. However, I do want to, so I don't monitor the fun stuff thing that closely. So I did want to say, congratulations to Tarza for winning the Outstanding Library Employee Award at the Missouri Library Association Conference. So yes, congratulations, Tarza. Sorry I missed that. I'll probably put a note about this in the announcement as well, that you won that, because that is a big deal, and I hope that your classmates are willing to celebrate your successes with you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm done with the state of the course update. So let's talk a little bit about copyright. If you want to take a quick break right now before I get into it, I'll probably spend about 25 minutes talking about this. So again, it'll probably be about a 30-minute video. And yes, all right, go ahead and take a break and then come back. All right, so yeah, let's have a few words about intellectual freedom and copyright. By the way, like I said earlier, there is a copyright class, so we don't need to dwell on that too much. I am going to be getting the information that I'm going to be sharing about intellectual freedom and copyright out of our guy. We've talked about Cops in the Library from this guy, the Intellectual Freedom Manual. Now we will talk about copyright and intellectual freedom implications. So first of all, first things first, let's talk about what copyright is. Some key concepts here. Now, first of all, when I was teaching, I actually used to teach in information policy back in the University of South Carolina while I was working on my PhD. And so with teaching information policy, I did have to teach about intellectual property. And so teaching about intellectual property, there are four major types of intellectual property that we recognize here in the United States. And those are going to be copyright, trademark, trade secrets, and I've got one more: copyright, trademark, trade secrets, and patents. Sorry about that. So yes, those are our four main types of intellectual property. If this were in information policy class, I would tell you the differences in those, but that's not something that we need to know for the purposes of this intellectual freedom class today. But let's get back to copyright specifically. Copyright law, just some key concepts that we're going to talk about here. So copyright law promotes learning and dissemination of information by giving authors and others an economic incentive to create new works that, along with works in the public domain, make up library collections. So increasingly, libraries are acquiring copyrighted works by license instead of outright purchase. And so in these cases, librarians, that's one thing that I want you all to be aware of. So especially with a lot of e-resources and things like that, instead of the copyright coming with the outright purchase of the material, what you get is a licensed version of the material, and you have some copyright implications there. And one of the things you want to be mindful of in considering that is that with these licensing agreements and everything, you have to also sometimes negotiate the ability to have multiple users using the same resource at one time, and you might have to negotiate being able to use things like intellectual interlibrary loan and that sort of thing. Okay, so yes, the licensing, it comes up with its own set of I don't want to say problems, but there are certainly things that you have to take note of as you're dealing with an issue of having a licensed material instead of buying the material and having the copyright outright. I'm going to talk a little bit about fair use in a bit, but just know that fair use is something that comes into play, especially when you're teaching and that sort of thing, but also in your library work as well. Fair use may come into play. So for instance, with fair use, I use fair use, for instance, like we had in this class, for instance, when I showed the I linked up the excerpt of the Anthony Jeselnik comedy special that was on, it's different when it's on Tubi because something like Tubi can be accessed for free anyway. But something like Netflix, where that Anthony Jeselnik special was, Netflix is a pay service, so I can't just take something from their pay service and just link it up everywhere all willy-nilly. But I am allowed to say, hey, fair use for educational purposes. That's why I am sharing this clip, this excerpt of this comedy special. And that, for the most part, will keep me out of trouble, especially since it was like a 2-minute excerpt. So things like length can play a part in that, but these things are kind of evaluated on a case-by-case situation, a case-by-case basis. All right, yeah, so now let's talk a little bit about just excuse me, hold on, my face was hurting and I had to take these off. Now I got to put them back on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about just a few other intellectual freedom implications of copyright. First of all, why do we have copyright? There is a constitutional basis for copyright, and what really, I think what the constitutional framers had in mind with their ideas of copyright was that they would have copyright be a thing where creators would have exclusive rights to buy, sell, or trade or vend their works and that sort of thing. And so there needed to be, in order to have creative content, in order to have intellectual content, all these things, we did need some sort of financial incentive for that to happen. And so copyright allowed people to have ownership of the creative or intellectual property that they created, and be able to, first of all, if they have ownership, they have protection. Somebody can't just steal that from them or just take their idea, take what they did, replicate it, that sort of thing, mass produce it, blah, blah, blah. And then also, yes, when you have those protections, then you can, like I said earlier, you can buy, sell, or trade and that sort of thing. So that can be a motivation to put stuff, creative and intellectual stuff out into the ether, is to have the ability to profit or make money off of it. And then we are currently governed by the Copyright Act of 1976 that is still in place. There are other laws that are newer that have sort of enhanced and worked in tandem with the Copyright Act of 1976, but we are still under we're under the authority of the Copyright Act of 1976. But one of the Intellectual Freedom Manual gives an example, actually. One of the more recent laws that kind of enhances the Copyright Act of 1976 is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. Now, what I want you all to be aware of is that libraries actually do have special considerations within these copyright acts, which is good. So, and I'm just going to read a quote verbatim here from the Intellectual Freedom Manual. Because of their elevated status, libraries can copy, preserve, and archive information without prior authorization from the rights holders. In addition, libraries have protection from liability, the right to copy works for replacement purposes, the right to copy a portion of a work or a journal title to provide a library user from another library, which is interlibrary loan, the right to make transfers, and so forth and so on. So those are some things that I want you all to, again, just be aware of. Libraries, you know, and this is something that I think is useful to know. I've never heard of an author going at a library in any serious manner, at least not in recent times. Authors tend to be very cooperative with librarians these days, because authors tend to understand that it's not libraries that are impeding their book sales, okay? But it is publishers. Publishers are a different story. It's the publishers that you have to worry about. Publishers still give librarians crap, but it's more so the publishers and not the authors themselves, okay? But unfortunately, and that's where, you know, I would need to actually take the class or myself or get some more training as to copyright implications within libraries, because quite frankly, I don't know when it comes to, and this is sad because I've authored things myself, so I should know, but I really don't know when it comes to authorship, like when it comes to copyright, who holds, typically who would hold more copyright power, so to speak, between the publisher or the author, between the creator or the publisher. I'm sure it varies in a case-by-case basis, and I'm sure that it varies in terms in whatever is signed as an agreement or a contract between the author and publisher. But again, suffice it to say that it's really not the authors giving libraries crap about copyright these days. So when we talk about, yes, we have the right to preserve, to copy, to make replacement copies and so forth and so on. You know, it's, you might have some publishers that are bothered by that, but that's why we have all these negotiations that we do with publishers, and publishers tend to even have their own like legal teams and legal arms and that sort of thing to help them with negotiations with libraries and other entities. Okay. So yeah, bear all that in mind, but the authors are typically not going to give you any trouble, especially since a lot of times they're just happy to have their work out there. Now the fair use exceptions, and we're going to talk about the fair use exceptions really quick here. There are basically 4 listed fair use exceptions that the Intellectual Freedom Manual is advising us to take notice of. So, by the way, what is fair use? Fair use is a flexible exception to the restrictions of copyright law. So again, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but I don't want to assume your knowledge and everything. So again, when I took that Anthony Jeselnik special, that I took a clip and uploaded a clip into the class, into the announcements, that special was copyrighted material on a paid site, on a paid Netflix site. So theoretically, because that is material that you're supposed to be able to pay to view, technically it would have been a copyright violation for me as far as, taking that excerpt and making it freely available online for people. Now, the Tubi situation, again, is different. That material is copyrighted as well, but Tubi has a different profit model. So whereas Netflix makes their profit primarily on subscriptions, Tubi actually doesn't turn a profit yet. It probably will eventually, but right now it actually doesn't turn a profit. It's owned by Fox and kind of subsidized by Fox. But in saying that, what I'll say is that Tubi doesn't make its money off subscriptions. It makes its money off of advertisements. Okay. So that's something important to note. But yeah, so fair use is a flexible exception to the restrictions of copyright law. Fair use is judged on a case-by-case basis, folks. It's not just a broadly applicable law. It's think when fair use issues come into play, there's not a prong, there's not a rubric and prongs like we would think with some of these other things like the Miller test and that sort of thing. No, rather it is just on a case-by-case basis. The judge will make a decision, but there are 4 factors that come into play when evaluating fair use. First of all, factor number 1, the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. Again, I know you got all pay tuition, so you might disagree with me, but I am going to tell you Mizzou is a nonprofit entity. Now, the University of Phoenix, that is a for-profit college. ECPI, that is for-profit. But yes, University of Missouri is not a for-profit institution, even though I know you all pay quite a bit to come here. But having said that, yes, that's what would have gotten me out of trouble sharing that Anthony Jeselnik excerpt was that was not a commercial nature. I did not profit from that. That was nonprofit educational purposes. Okay. The nature of the copyrighted work is taken into account. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyright work, in relation to the whole, that is also considered. So like, for instance, again, I showed you a 2-minute excerpt of a 55-minute special. Okay. And if I showed you a 54-minute excerpt of a 55-minute special, that might have actually gotten me in trouble, even if I am claiming educational fair use. All right. So that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So what they're saying about that is if the copyright violation is going to, or if not the copyright violation, sorry, if the fair use is going to result in the copyright holder losing a substantial profit or something like that, which again is typically not going to be the case with libraries. It certainly was not the case with me sharing that clip. Netflix isn't, they're probably not getting a lot of subscriptions just based on Anthony Jeselnik to begin with. People who already have Netflix would probably be accessing the Anthony Jeselnik special because they already have the service, but nobody is saying, hey, the only way I'm going to see this Anthony Jeselnik special is to subscribe to Netflix. Let me do that. I say that to say that because I shared an excerpt of the special, that's not going to cause Anthony Jeselnik or the publisher Netflix to lose a lot of money, because again, even if that made the whole special accessible, that might harm Anthony Jeselnik. He might be like, hey, that's I'm losing some of my royalties from pays into play from Netflix. But Netflix is certainly going to be just like, well, That's just one piece of our holdings. And no, him sharing that special is not going to put a dent in our bottom line. Okay. Might put a dent in Anthony Jeselnik's bottom line, but not in ours. All right. And by the way, by ours, I mean Netflix, not me and you. Now, why should we as librarians care? Why care about copyright? I'm just going to read the bulk of this section here. I'm going to read this paragraph out of the manual for you, and this will hopefully explain why why we as library workers should care about copyright. So, there are many reasons why library workers should be interested in copyright law. Library workers are part of a profession with the social responsibility to ensure that the public has access to information. We definitely are that. Library workers embrace the copyright law that encourages the development of new knowledge and creativity that can enhance our lives and inform us. Yet, First Amendment rights and freedom of inquiry and expression can be thwarted by copyright because rights holders have a statutory monopoly giving them exclusive control over several rights. They also have the power to withhold knowledge and to control speech. So, and that's something that I don't even really consciously think about that much, but it is something that's worth bearing. In fact, I'll repeat it. Because rights holders have a statutory monopoly giving them exclusive control over several rights, they also have the power to withhold knowledge and control speech. So yeah, if I had some sort of awesome knowledge in something that I had copyrighted, like I discovered something and only I knew it and I wrote it down and then copyrighted, I could withhold that knowledge. I could do that. Me as a copyright holder, I would be allowed to say, no, only I get to know this. And hopefully that wouldn't be the secret to world peace or something like that. Because, it would be kind of a douchebag move, whoever were to actually do that. Many librarians are concerned that information has been locked up through the expansion of copyright, increases in the duration of copyright protection, the elimination of formalities, and aspects of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, as well as expansion of licensing. Okay. The one piece of that I want to go back to really quickly is, yes, the durations of the copyright protection and the expansions of copyright. These are things that, especially like the duration thing. There was a time when I can't remember exactly now what the duration figure is, but there is, I think it's the life of the author in, I don't know if it's the life of the author in 70 years. I have to look that up, but if you take the copyright class, you'll know. But, so I say that to say, the librarians have hated this. Yes, traditionally librarians have not liked the fact that, okay, because there are copyright laws in place, certain information just, even when somebody is dead, like I think that's one of the things that's a big pet peeve to a lot of librarians is that the creator can be dead, and still there are copyright limitations that librarians have to abide by before things go just into, I think librarians would love it if, as soon as somebody died, everything just went into public domain, but it doesn't work like that. But we want to share information and want to make information accessible, so that's just one of those barriers that we want to remove. But yeah, no copyright, and please don't violate it, even as you are trying to help people access information, folks. You can't violate copyright. And I know that there's going to be that temptation there because it's free to do it. Like it's when you violate copyright, you're making something accessible to somebody for free, usually. But yeah, we have to protect creators and honor creators and things like that, and distributors as well. Now, I will say just for the record that, there are things that I have to do, with one thing that you all might have noticed is that I put a lot of links in the class in these course shells. If you're in this class now, if you're taking my other classes, you will also see that, yes, I don't actually put the PDFs in the Canvas, course shell unless it's something that I could access for free anyway. Usually they're like hyperlinks to the stuff, hyperlinks to, things within, like permalinks to library resources or hyperlinks to things that are available over the web. And the reason for that, again, is the copyright thing. Sometimes it helps copyright holders not necessarily to have somebody purchase something, but even to access it. hits, that sort of thing, website hits and that sort of thing. And so that's the reason it would be much easier for you all if I just put things in the class, like if I just put the PDFs right there in the class, and then you could just click on the module, click that PDF, and just load it. But again, if I were to do that, that would actually be that's getting into a bit of a copyright violation, because now people aren't able to track the usage even of these sorts of things. They're just kind of, they're just being accessed in a place that they weren't distributed to deliberately, where they weren't meant to be accessed. Okay. So, yeah, these are some of the things I know that librarians love, and librarians do love. I've seen librarians, have like little networks even, where they would like secretly send each other, like email each other things that were not available at their particular library and things like that. And that is a copyright violation. It really is a copyright violation to do that. You do need to go through the proper interlibrary loan channels, but some of you are going to break those rules, and that's just going to be an issue of what we sometimes call good trouble. Good trouble being trouble that you're getting in, rules and laws that you're breaking, but for what you believe is a good cause. Okay. So I've said all that. The last thing that I'll say is that, yes, we do want to also, when you are a librarian and you're doing things like creating, which you'll be doing as a librarian, you'll be doing things like creating promotional materials and flyers and things like that. You'll have music that you'll want to put on some videos. You'll have music that you may want to have before and after some programs and that sort of thing. What I recommend you do is, again, just for copyright issues, what I recommend you do is look for things within the Creative Commons. And I'm not going to be the only person who recommends this to you. This is just standard librarians recommend this. Come on, baby. All right, Creative Commons. So when it comes to Creative Commons, you can, hold on. So this is creativecommons.org, and I'm going to read a little bit of background here. So Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization founded in 2001, and Creative Commons Creative Commons license allows a creator or rights holder of a work to voluntarily give up some or all exclusive rights provided by copyright so that their work can be more freely used. The author or rights holder can create and assign a Creative Commons license to their work, thereby legally announcing that they are not claiming all of the exclusive rights or other conditions of copyright available to them. And so, for example, one might assign a license that releases users from the burden of asking permission when the use is for nonprofit or educational purposes, but then you do have to ask for permission or pay if you are doing something commercial. So that's something that Creative Commons can be used for. And so, yeah, when you go on Wikipedia and some of these other websites, you'll see a lot of things that are, just in the public domain due to Creative Commons. You'll see like Creative Commons notes. Actually, let me pause and see if I can pull one up real quick for you. All right, so like I said, you can see these things a lot on Wikipedia, and we've got our, so this is a diagram of an eye, and we've got a Creative Commons note down here. Attribution, share, alike, 3.0, unported deed. Let me pause real quick so I can see what that means. Okay, so you see under there, you are free to share this. The person who actually is a rights holder to that image, they are saying that you are free to share the image, even commercially in this case. And then they are actually allowing you to adapt this image as well, but under these following terms. For the sake of video length, I'm not going to read the terms, but just know that those terms are there. And so one thing, when it comes to libraries creating things, a lot of times what we do, so libraries are typically working with limited budgets and trying to operate and provide as much services as they can with as little money as they can. So when you're creating flyers and promotional materials and that sort of thing, a lot of times what your employer is going to do is steer you to things like Pexels that where you can download and use free non-copyrighted stock images. Okay, and that's a way to keep yourself clean and protected when it comes to creating promotional materials for your library as well. So yeah, just a few words about copyright. If you really want to learn about copyright, again, I suggest you go ahead and take the copyright class. But the information that we shared today came from the Intellectual Freedom Manual, which means that it is relevant to this class. But at the end of the day, that is all that we need to discuss on the topic. So let's end it right here. I am Dr. Jace, and I am so excited about receiving your book reports this week that my mind is just all over the place. Jace Place got my rhyme, and we are all good. I am really enjoying this class, really enjoying you all, and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the discussion boards.